4:30. Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. It is 4:30, and we would like to begin.
Well, that's always
Is Wayne going to come today? Do you know?
it always looks better.
All right. Welcome again. I'd like to begin by standing for a moment of silence, and we'll follow that with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if we could have a roll call, please.
Tom Eggers.
Here.
Wayne Barahona. Pete Hamill.
Here.
Ken Snyder.
Here.
Brad Hint.
Here. All right, moving on to item 2, approval of the agenda. I'll take a motion for that.
So moved.
Support. Any comments? Roll call, please.
Hamill.
Aye.
Eggers.
Aye.
Snyder.
Aye.
Ken. Aye.
We now move into the public forum portion of our meeting. Is there anyone here today that would like to address the council at this time? Seeing no one, we'll move on forward then to the consent agenda. I'll take a motion for that.
So moved.
Support. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Ken.
Aye.
Hamill.
Aye.
Snyder.
Aye.
Eggers.
Aye.
All right, moving right along. New business, item 6A. We need to approve the closeout of the 16th Street project. Any comments from either Todd or Sam at this time?
Yeah, so this project was actually done a long time ago. It was actually a project we did in 2018. As described in the letter, there was some delay. DOT approving the final paperwork. What this does is allows us to go ahead and get our final reimbursement of $285.19 from the DOT, bringing the total reimbursement up to $470,876.50. You may or may not recall that project cost us a little over $600,000, so we ended up with a very high reimbursement. Recommend approval unless you have any questions.
If I recall, there was, at some point, there was some, we were considering liquidated damages for the way it went over.
We
Did we ever?
I think 30-some thousand liquidated damages we ended up charging.
Did we collect that?
Yeah,
Oh,
well,
okay.
yeah, we did.
Okay.
Yeah.
At the time, I could recall it was going to be, it sounded kind of sketchy whether or not it would be in.
So if you look at the final paperwork, it says total due $588 to the contractor.
Okay,
That amount prior to the liquidated damages was like,
okay. Very good. Any other questions?
Make the motion to approve.
Support. Any further comments? Roll call, please.
Snyder.
Aye.
Ken.
Aye.
Hamill.
Aye.
Eggers.
Aye.
All right, then moving on to item B, we have a hearing on the Highway 18 34th Avenue traffic signal and intersection improvements project. I'd like to open that public hearing now. Any comments from anyone? Any written comments?
None.
Okay. Seeing no one, take a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Support. Roll call, please.
Hamill.
Aye.
Snyder.
Aye.
Ken.
Aye.
Eggers.
Aye.
Right. Then moving on to the discussion and direction, is there anything you'd like to address us with today?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. And bid tabs were sent out. Sounds like you've all had a chance to review those. I did have a larger copy that I just handed out for if they got a little small through the translation. But in summary, we had 4 bids, fairly competitive bids, 2 fairly close on the lower end and 2 fairly close on the upper end, all well below the estimate. The main difference in cost was the traffic signal itself, item number 21. Based on some information we were gathering from suppliers and such during the design process with delays in procurement and material cost itself, that's the number we plugged in there. Fortunately, it went in the right direction for the city and the community. So most of the difference in the bids and our estimate was that one item itself. So with that, we did have a letter of recommendation to award the project to Holstein Excavating from Edgerton, Minnesota. We have had projects with them in the past. I know there's been a few fairly recent in town that I think have gone fairly well. We would recommend awarding the project to them.
Okay. Any questions for our engineer? I think, did I see that right? It's 50 days for completion on this one?
Yep.
You're gonna have to keep moving on that then, it seems.
Yeah, and we did that on purpose. Obviously, it's a fairly busy road and intersection with some commercial businesses there that we wanted to disrupt for the least amount of time. The intention is essentially up to the contractor on how he controls traffic, as long as all ways are usable at all times. And what I mean by that is they might be working on two opposite corners of the intersection. For instance, everyone's still able to go east or westbound, north and south through the thoroughway, but the turn lane itself might be shut off, and through traffic control will be regulated that way.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe touch on the potential of some fall work, and yet your completion date is still here.
Yeah, so with the delay in materials that we talked about, it was recommended to do a fall of 2023 completion date. Some of the traffic signal items are months out. During the bid process, we had a couple of questions from contractors wondering if they could do any work this fall, and the response was possibly, as long as everything that is started can get buttoned up and isn't an impedance to traffic or snow removal or anything like that over the winter. So that question may very well come up again, should Holstein be awarded the project, and if they're interested in doing work this fall. There might have to be some temporary signage or something that Todd and I have talked about, to get us through the winter and things like that. So there is a chance there might be some work out there this fall, unless we have a really, really good late fall and early winter. I don't think anything would get totally completed. But the final completion date, 50 days is the working day, with a final completion date in October of 23.
Okay. Sam had a question.
Jason, can you remind me where things ended up with the emergency siren activators?
Yep. So those were included in the bid. Those will be an item installed as part of the traffic signals. It'll be a camera detection system, similar to Washington, with the emergency vehicle detector on it. None of them are fiber linked or anything like that, but it will be a single camera detection system to regulate the green light and the traffic flow.
All right. Anyone else? All right. We need a motion to approve that resolution.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Support. Roll call, please.
Hamel.
Aye.
Eggers.
Aye.
Hint.
Aye.
Snyder.
Aye.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. All right, moving on then to item C, a report on the insurance review. We have both Tom and Larry with us today. Are you guys going to be one of the reporters? Or what's your intention with that, as far as the report?
I can start off.
Okay, you bet.
Thank you, Mayor. So our report speaks for itself. I'll just hit a few of the highlights. First of all, I'd like to thank Todd Ewell and Pete Hamill, and especially Will Moss, for their assistance with this discussion. basically the outcome is to keep things as they are and affirm our relationship with Perspective. One of the positive outcomes out of the discussion was, if you scroll to the end of the report, perhaps Tom or Larry would like to address this, but the fresh set of eyes argument was probably the most powerful basis for considering a switch, which is the essence of the discussion with the city's auditing firm, and understand Perspective plans to address that by utilizing the benefits of having multiple offices to help provide this review. This was mentioned in our interview with you two. And I don't know if you're prepared to talk about that today, but one of the things that we had encouraged you to do at the time was to formally adopt such a process internally and advise the city as to how that would work.
Well, first off, thank you for the opportunity to go through the process. It was interesting, and I thought the committee was very thorough with their questions. And as far as the fresh set of eyes, we have other offices. We do other public entities in other communities in Northwest Iowa. And we recommended that we would have one of those agents be that fresh set of eyes. In other words, review what we've done here. I think it's a valid point that we have that opportunity. So I'll be glad to answer questions about that.
Anyone?
And one more,
Okay,
if I might.
you bet.
So the other is, if you see my little editorial comment at the bottom of page 1, where I talked about the potential at some point of getting a quote from EMC. Personally, I think, and professionally, I think ICAP and IMWCA do a great job for us. But you remember when we went through the health insurance discussion several years ago, especially at that time when Unity Point was considering a merger with Sanford, which didn't go forward, but there seemed to be some promise there, and so we looked at some quotes, and we got a quote from Medica and a few others, and ultimately that didn't go anywhere, but it helped affirm our decision that we were going the right direction with the HSA option. So what do you say to the concept of going through the exercise either this fall or a year from now, going just and getting a quote and seeing what we come up with?
Carriers usually want to quote fairly close to the renewal date so that the numbers are valid.
Okay.
So that process would have to occur, say 90 days prior to renewal. And we do a lot of business with EMC. We could certainly entertain doing that for the city.
That's your question? Just a clarification, I'm not sure who would best answer this. On page 2 of the minutes meeting on August 30, there's a note there about Employers Mutual. And then there's a subpoint on that says EMC, or excuse me, the first subpoint, fire truck example. EMC would not have rented a fire truck for us. Is that a negative thing? I would read that as a negative thing. Am I interpreting that correctly?
That's a lot of dollars.
$100,000.
Yeah. So if they aren't doing it, why do we want to stay with them? That's the question, I guess.
No, that would be EMC.
That's EMC.
We're with these.
Oh,
with
okay,
ICAP.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
We would have had to come up with $100,000 to rent
Okay,
a fire truck.
okay.
That was
all
part
right.
of the coverage.
That makes sense. I was reading that, I thought we had, but what was the other? There was kind of a two-part thing here. ICAP, and what's the other one?
IMWCA.
IMW, okay. I was reading that and thinking that was them.
Yeah.
So, okay, that answers the question
Yeah.
then.
If I might.
Yes.
So would EMC have given us an allowance for a rental?
We would have had to add that to their policy.
I see.
And ICAP, they just include that coverage in their form.
Okay.
So, and if I understand correctly, the city used every dollar of that.
Yes.
In fact, I'm not sure it even covered the whole cost.
You're correct.
All right. Anything else from anybody up here? All right.
Again,
Go ahead.
been good to work with on the fire department side. When I've had to deal with you guys in your office, have been really good.
And we certainly appreciate the city, so thank you.
So I would, if we need to have a resolution, I would entertain that motion to continue with prospective insurance.
Okay, is there support for that?
Support.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Eggers.
Aye.
Snyder.
Aye.
Hint.
Aye.
Hamel.
Aye. Very good. Tom, I understand that retirement is on the very near horizon for you, so I wish you the best in your future endeavors.
I'm a day closer.
I appreciate having the opportunity to work with you over the years.
Thank you.
So,
Appreciate
and look
that.
forward to hearing more from your replacement, huh? Very good. Thank you. All right, moving on then to our reports. We have with us Jacob from the Rec Department. Jake, microphone is yours.
Thanks for having me. We'll just start with our outdoor pool report that we have, our annual pool report. As you can see, probably the main one that you see is the concessions. And based on that, it's because now we just have it during our breaks, our main breaks, instead of having it open all day. Last year I provided a report on that of why we're only doing it for our main breaks, and that's to cover the extra costs for our lifeguards to pay them more. So that was kind of the reason for that. So, and then also you'll see from last year, even though we made $14,000, we still had a net loss of about $3,000 because of wages and just concession supplies too. So that's kind of the main difference you'll see from last year and previous years too, is the concession for the pool. Some of the highlights from the pool from this year. This year we had a total of 22 lifeguards. That's down from previous years. Last year we had 24. 2021 we had 26, and then 2020 we had 26. And just to reiterate a little bit about lifeguarding, it takes about 29 hours to pass the class, and they have to pass 4 exams, 2 multi-choice exams as well as scenario exams. So it can be pretty rigorous to be a lifeguard too as well. So and then due to high numbers, we're looking at adding another junior lifeguard class. So basically that's just an introduction to lifeguarding. We're seeing a lot of interest from people in our community wanting to do that program. We only offer it once, but it seems like based on emails and contact I had from people from this year that it may be best to have 2. So we'll look into doing that too for next year. And then another thing we're looking at adding for next year is every Tuesday we're looking to open the pool at 2:15 instead of 1. And the reason for this is to do our lifeguard in-services. We've had some issue with our lifeguard in-services for previous years. A couple of those are conflicts with baseball and softball. And then some other conflicts we've had are 15-year-olds. They can only work a certain amount of hours during a week and a certain amount of hours in a day, and they can't go past 9 o'clock. So that's why we can't really do in-services at night anymore, is because of that. So we're just looking to keep it consistent on Tuesdays because based on the Park and Rec recommendation to do it every Tuesday, so we can keep it consistent. The preference we had was it's just like our trash can. Everyone remembers to take out their trash can every week, but our recycling, if you do it every other week, like me, you forget. So that's why we want to keep it consistent with every Tuesday. So does anyone have any questions about the aquatic center at all?
Yeah, Jake, I was just looking at the memberships, and I see that we had 0 this year for the joint family pass. Did we not offer that this year, or?
It's still offered, we just didn't, put it on our forms this year,
Okay.
for that, so. But it's still available to the public.
Okay. So is that kind of a de-emphasis of the rec department then, or how would you frame that? It's on your form, but no one's interested in it.
That too, yeah, from previous years.
Okay. Okay.
And then moving to the park information, you'll see this year we had our most participants, and since we've been keeping track of this since 2008, we had 1,660, so that's about almost 300 more than last year, which was our most participants that we had last year too. So some of the highlights from the rec side, we completed the Sheldon rec batting cages at the Sheldon Sports Complex in early June. Had there's two batting cages, one softball and one's for baseball. And then there's also a hitting station too as well. And then we brought a Twins baseball camp to Sheldon on Friday, July 29th. We had about 150 plus participants at that event, and we had people from all over Northwest Iowa participate in that. We had people from Spencer, Lamar's, Sioux Center, Orange City, just a bunch of people from all over. We've added 4 new programs this season. We had a baseball skills camp, a fall volleyball for 1st through 4th grade. We offer basketball open gyms now, and then we had a football skills camp too. So, and some of those were partnerships with the Sheldon Orabs coaches as well. So, and then our 3rd through 6th grade baseball and softball program, we added something new this year. We added morning practices during the month of June. So this allowed participants to get 16 practices in the month of June. In previous years, some of the teams would only be able to practice 1 time a week. That's because they have games at night, so it's hard for coaches to get practices when we have games during the month of June. So you're looking at quite a bit more practices for the youth. So we paid 1 adult supervisor and 2 instructors to run those morning practices, and we had a lot of positive results from parents and everyone involved in the programs. And then our 1st through 2nd grade and 3rd through 6th grade flag football program, they were able to play games on the new Sheldon Orb turf field. They loved it, as you can imagine. Some other things, we added 2 pickleball courts. A lot of the praise goes to Ed Jager and Stanton Clay on that project. And then another thing that was added, the Frisbee golf course at Hills Park. You don't have to run up a hill to get to hole 4 now. We added stairs to that now. So, and that was a partnership with Greg Peterson, who's a Cub Scout. So. And
Was that an Eagle project?
yeah, yep.
Boy Scout.
Boy Scout.
Yeah. You said Cub Scout, but Boy Scout.
Yeah, I get those confused.
I was picturing a little kid doing all that work.
Didn't know if there's any other questions on rec at all. No?
Oh,
All
thanks,
right.
Jake.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
One question, Jake.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
a huge jump in the spring soccer.
Yes.
How do you handle that many?
Well, that's a great question. So currently it's more time at this moment. We've, at the top of my head, Pete, last year we had 70 people from out of town that joined that program. So a lot of people from out of town came to our programs for our soccer. So at this current time, it's a lot. We have to add extra times because we're kind of condensed on space right now where we can play soccer at. So hopefully with the new field, we might be able to use that field a little bit, that turf field. But we're pretty condensed when it comes to field usage of where we can play, so we've just had to extend it a little longer. So we are looking at other alternatives, excuse me, to see if we can condense that time and work around some of those things if it keeps growing. So
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you, Jake.
All right,
Good to
thanks
see
for your
the
time.
rec program being utilized by the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Jake.
All right, city manager, anything from you as far as a report?
I do. Usually I don't, but today I do. So I would like you to click on the link right underneath 7B. You'll see the blue link for personnel manual and ordinance revision files. If all of you could click on that with me. And you'll see 2 files inside of there in Dropbox. You have to click on it from the agenda. Sorry.
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
Okay.
We'll talk about the second one first, and that's the personnel manual. We talked about that last time. So I'm going to keep that in front of you once Micah has completed his review. Then that will hopefully be on a consent calendar before the end of the year. I'd like to talk about ordinance review, so click on that one. You'll see 5 files in there. The first is the 2019 code, which is the most current. Second folder, it says not up for review. Of course, everything's always up for review, but we haven't spent much time reviewing the subdivision and zoning codes. That has to go through the Planning Commission process, but those 2 codes are a subset of the regular city code, even though they're in a separate book. The third is the most important. That's the code draft. Open it up with me for a moment. Scroll down. Give it a moment to load. And on the right hand side, if you get down to past the menu, you'll start seeing the comments on the right hand side, like 1.04 is the first one, where there's what's called a model change on indemnity. So here's the idea I would like to propose to you, is that so Iowa codification has been assisting us with updating the code. This is an enormous effort, and I'd like us to remember that our goal right now is to catch up with 25 years of legislative updates. So we can do more substantial review once we have a better baseline. It's not easy to update something that's this far behind. Couple of things to remember: the page numbers are much higher. The real number of pages is 373. It's not 941. The reason it's numbered that way is to allow for changes in the future without renumbering everything. This version also has an excellent table of contents, indexes, and supplements that the current code does not have. The department directors and I are reviewing it also. If we have a linear review where I review it and then the department heads all review it and then you review it and then the attorney reviews it, it'll take us forever. So thought we would try to have joint review process. So I feel like a professor here, but my assignment to you is to read the edits to chapters 1 through 47. That sounds like an enormous task, but it really isn't that hard. You scroll down on the right and you'll see the changes. I will work on a memo to highlight some, but not all of the changes. I'd like to avoid a line-by-line review. There are there's several types of changes. There's what's called the boilerplate change, or the template change that Simmering and Corey has, and then there's the legislative change, and then there's changes that the city asked for. Like, for example, the Cable TV Commission. We haven't had a Cable TV Commission in forever, but because we have a franchise for cable and a small franchise fee, we need to keep one. So I I took the liberty of putting in the code, let's formally get rid of the Cable TV Commission, and then when we need one, the city council becomes the Cable TV Commission. So that was a little trick of the trade I learned, that if you want to get, that's a way to get rid of a commission without getting rid of a commission, is to do it that way. Another item would be a preview from down the road, and Todd and I talked about this afternoon, is trees. That's chapter 151. It's not in the first section, but be thinking about that because we do not have consensus based on the discussion we had before. That is a bit of a rabbit trail. We're going to have to go down and have that conversation. So another would be code enforcement. We have Steve Hallgren reviewing the code enforcement and nuisance sections. There'll be some changes to that. So with that, I will stand for questions. Anything on that?
Does Steve have any kind of a role in this process?
He does.
Okay.
Yeah, I've asked him to review the nuisance sections. So there's been some updates already, and then he's doing some further updates. But yes.
Okay.
And then another thing, and Brad and I were talking about, I mentioned this to him right before the meeting, chapter 38, I believe, is brand new. That's on Knox boxes and entry systems. But that's about the only thing that is brand new in the first 47 chapters. The rest are changes, are just legislative changes. The legislative changes are very important, and they can catch you by surprise if you haven't caught it, if we haven't followed through on what the legislature allows us to do. Like, for example, because the League of Cities goes to bat for us every year, and there's often changes that benefit cities. Sometimes there's changes that don't benefit cities, but oftentimes there are. And that caught us off guard, for example, when we had a mayoral and council vacancy at the same time. We had the 40-day, we went and fixed that surgically. We came forward and did an update on that last year, but that caught us off guard because we only had 40 days in our old code, but the state code allowed us to go up to 60. So that's an example of why it's important to keep up with the legislative updates.
So what kind of input are you asking from us then?
Well, I'm asking...
Without having a deep dive into this?
Well, you can deep dive if you want to. I'm trying to find a way to present this where our focus doesn't have to be just the legislative changes. I would like it to be, but if you scroll down the side and you see some things that you really want to address, you either can say, hey, Sam and staff and city attorney, we'd like you to address this now, or we'd like you to flag it for later. But like urban renewal, for example, we're going to be updating, we've updated urban renewal more often, and this is the same concept. Every few years, at least, every year we really should be updating the legislative updates, and that gives us an opportunity to do other updates every year as well.
So is this just kind of like the first go-round, and there will be another one once all the changes have been implemented?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the idea here is to, yes, we're going to take several meetings and review the chapters, and then we have to set a hearing, and then we have to have a hearing, and then we can do first reading. And then every year I'd like to bring forward the legislative changes, and then that gives us an opportunity to look at the city code every year. Like, for example, let's circle back and talk about trees again. Let's say that we get stuck, which might happen because it's a big topic, and then we decide, you know what, let's split the difference on this. Let's accept the legislative changes and the model code changes that Simmering and Corey recommends, and let's have a conversation about what the next step would be. We have several points of view. We have the Public Works Director's point of view that we shouldn't or that we should at least strongly consider not allowing more trees to be planted in the right-of-way. We could split the difference further and say, okay, east of 23rd Avenue or something beyond the cemetery, we're not going to allow trees in the right-of-way where there aren't now. So, or we could say, you know, we're just not prepared to go down, have a drastic change. We're going to keep talking about it. So that's one example of where we probably need to have some good policy discussion. There's another significant policy change that's being proposed in the code enforcement section. Right now, if somebody doesn't mow their lawn, you know, you can't really, our current code doesn't allow us to assess, doesn't specifically allow us to assess city attorney fees and costs for our time. We've included that because we believe that with a straight face we can say this is our cost of doing it, but we want to specifically enable that in the code, especially attorney costs. So that if you put us through the pain of us having to send you letters and mow your lawn for you, it's going to cost you an additional, let's say, $100. We want to make that clear. And that's a significant policy change. Anything to add? No.
We talked earlier, you and I, about how to go through this process, and one of the ideas, if I recall, was you suggested a retreat and go through it in one big swallow. But
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I talked to Angie, and she and I agree that that's not a good idea, and the three of us agree that that's not a good idea, and I think you and I probably agree it's not a good idea, so let's just...
So do it in smaller bites and
Yeah.
just eat an elephant one bite at a time. All right. Any more questions on this? You know what your assignment is for the next, then that'll be 2 weeks from now when we discuss it again, so there will be a test?
Yes, there will be.
All right, be prepared.
Did I answer your
Brad's
question?
done.
Tom, did I answer your question?
No, that's
No?
fine.
I want to.
Don't like my
So what-
Well, normally, what I would do in a process like this is make this a shared document, so we could all enter our comments and we could all see what those comments are, so that we're all kind of prepared for what we're going to be talking about the next time. But that's certainly a call on your part to do it any way you want to. The other part of it is that if there's a lot of detail, I guess a little direction on where the policy portion of this needs the attention, similar to some of the examples you gave, would probably be good, knowing that the rest of the legislative and that is, I'm assuming that the people we got doing this got that nailed, okay? I don't want to spend my time on that. I'd rather spend my time on the policy issues and where we need to review and to understand where we want to go, prioritize probably a little bit. So that's kind of where my head was at.
So I will do that for chapters 1 through 47. There's not a lot of policy change except for the Knox box
Right.
code and a few other things. So I will do that.
I know that'll help me. Hopefully it'll help the rest of them too. So,
Good deal.
thanks.
Okay, anything else on that, Tom?
No.
Or Sam? Ready to move on? Todd, anything from you?
Thank you.
Kurt?
Thank you, Mayor.
Chief Birch? Ange?
Nada.
Represent your counsel to my left and to my right.
Just want to lift up the fire department on their open house. It looked to be a very successful event. A little anecdote to that, and I think I shared it with Brad that night, but we had the privilege of being down Pella, Iowa the weekend before, and they had their open house on a Saturday morning, had breakfast, and to give you a little idea of how how firemen have this fraternity or closeness, as I mentioned to them that we were from Sheldon and that we had just taken delivery on a new ladder truck. And I had like about 5 firemen surround me while I was going through the pancake line to talk about it and that. So I think I got an extra pancake out of it, actually. So, but they were excited about it, and we should be too. Very nice unit. We've got a great department, and it was a good open house. I'm glad to see it was supported. So I appreciate the community in that effort as well. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Tom. I just want to give you a little insight too. If your chairs were adjusted differently or your microphone was not in the position that you normally have it in, that may have happened on Friday. Last Friday, we had 11 third graders from Sanborn Christian School along with their teacher, who happens to be my niece. And it got entered into the public record that I am her favorite uncle at this point. But they wanted to they're studying in their social studies about city government, federal government, and so on. They wanted to have a visit with the mayor, and given the family relationship, she asked if I could come visit them, and I suggested, why don't we come here, and we'll have a mock council meeting. So every student had a role, whether it was councilman, city administrator. Ange was here with me, keeping us on task, but it was a delightful day. The biggest things, I think, because I got thank yous from them, each one wrote thank yous. I think the things that they most enjoyed were being able to sit in these chairs and use the microphones. The microphones were hot, were live, so they were, in fact, some of the kids that didn't get to use them came up and sat in the chairs and talked in the microphone afterwards. But it was a delightful day. I did that 3 years ago with the third grade, 3 section of third graders from Sheldon Elementary, and we just had such a good time. We did a consent agenda, the whole thing, the roll call and whatnot. The one issue of discussion was whether or not we should have a helmet law for children 14 and under. And there was a lot of discussion. We had a police chief playing the role of police chief that said there were 1,000 injuries for kids in Sheldon that did not wear helmets over the years. But that was not enough to convince them, and the motion to have a law was defeated 4-1. So, but just wanted to share with that. It was a lot of fun. I got thank yous from them, and they really enjoyed it as well. It was a learning experience for them. So,
They really, once they knew that nay was no, they really started to just start going that way. I didn't think we were going to adjourn. I thought it was going to fail.
First two, most to adjourn. The first two said, I said, because you'll be able to go. And of course, that meant going back to school. So the first two said no. But I'm working my way around.
I promise I didn't talk to him.
See?
I threatened them at that point. I said, if this motion doesn't carry, we're going to make you clean toilets. And so it passed 3-2 that we could adjourn. But anyway, just wanted to share with that. That was some of the fun we had here. So, and that's all. Yeah, Kurt.
Mayor Jason had asked, you wanted to mention, you wanted to say comment?
Oh.
Yeah, just on the open house thing, Beck Engineering had their open house last Friday.
Oh, yes.
And I just wanted to thank the community for the great success and all the participation we had. It was fun.
Very good. Appreciate your investment in the community as a result of that. So.
Same goes for everyone that came out and
All
supporting
right.
us, so thank you.
Are you getting a lot of walk-ins, surveys, and that sort of thing?
There's been a few, an uptick, yeah. And we've had some people reach out to us back and forth even since Friday on different, all aspects.
Good.
Yeah, it's been good. It's been a good experience.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. With that, we take a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second?
Roll call, please.
Eggers.
Aye.
Hamel.
Aye.
Snyder.
Aye.
Ed.
Aye.